Hello and welcome to Friday's Granada Reports. We are live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello there. On the programme this evening,
a 14-year-old girl and a coach driver die after a school bus crash on the M53. We'll have the latest.
The bus was a school bus taking pupils to West Kirby and Caldy Grammar Schools on the Wirral. And sadly, I can confirm that the driver and a 14-year-old schoolgirl have died.
rising hospital rates and another rollout of jabs. We speak to one of our region's experts about the current threat of COVID.
All eyes on the Super League prize. The playoffs are here, but who will make it to the grand final at Old Trafford?
Introducing Loose Articles, the all-girl post-punks from Manchester will soon be sharing the stage with the Foo Fighters.
And we have an unsettled weekend ahead with that breeze picking up once again to ruffle our feathers. The forecast will be coming up later in the programme.
Well, first tonight, a 14-year-old schoolgirl and a coach driver have died after a school bus crashed on the M53 in Wirral.
It happened just after 8 o'clock this morning at Junction 5 near Hooton. The coach was carrying pupils from 2 local schools, many of whom were taken to hospital.
Tonight, we have reporters live at the scene and at Alder Hey. We'll get the very latest from both Rob and Victoria in a moment.
But first, this report from Emma Sweeney.
No doubt it'll have started like any other day, but at the height of this morning's rush hour, the unimaginable turned reality. As a school bus lay strewn across the M53, emergency services scrambled to the scene.
We declared a major incident. This was due to the potential number of casualties involved. As a result, we sent a substantial number of ambulances, senior clinicians and our hazardous area response teams. A critical care doctor was also dispatched to the scene.
We understand there were 54 people, including the driver, on the bus, and sadly, I can confirm that the driver and a 14-year-old schoolgirl have died.
A further 52 school children were treated for their injuries. Some have been taken to local hospitals. The youngsters, who'd barely settled into the new school term, were en route to West Kirby and Caldy Grange Grammar Schools. Earlier, local leaders pledged their assistance.
As the council, we will continue to work with other local areas and all those who are affected, as we wish to provide support and assistance as needed to the families who have been involved in this.
The schools themselves and the local authority have sprung into action today, but we know that resources are limited, and if it becomes clear that more help is needed, I certainly hope that the Education Secretary and the government nationally will be able to provide that.
Tonight, at the scene of the accident, the M53 remains closed in both directions.
Our operations are currently scaling down, and currently we stay at the scene in attendance to preserve the scene with Merseyside Police whilst an investigation is conducted.
It'll take time for answers, time to understand what caused the paths of so many, many lives to change forever. Emma Sweeney, ITV News.
Well, let's cross to our correspondent Rob Smith, who's close to the scene of the crash on the M53. Rob, tell us what's been happening there throughout the day.
A meticulous investigation is what's been happening just a short distance along this closed motorway. It's been kept shut all day, diverted traffic onto all of the roads around that are absolutely heaving, but on there, nothing, while police try to piece together the chain of events that led to this terrible crash, and helped in that by the fire service, who are, in their words, helping to protect and preserve the scene while police gather that evidence. Officers have said tonight that no other vehicle was involved in this crash. It was the bus and the bus alone. And standing here, it frankly defies comprehension that this happened just along there to a bus full of school kids on their way to school and in a convoy of school kids. That's just not what is meant to happen to them. It's not what is meant to happen to a 14-year-old girl. I can tell you that at one of the schools involved, Caldy Grange Grammar, the atmosphere, speaking to a few of the staff outside, bewilderment, shock, horror, and so much quieter than it would normally be on a school day. Just no one able to take in what has happened to people that fundamentally they know. And being on the Wirral today, the buses from the bus company still driving around. Just think of what is going through their minds. The staff, the drivers, they have lost a colleague today in the most horrific of circumstances. National Highways have made clear that this road will stay shut into the evening. It will stay shut as long as it takes for police to get the information that they need.
OK, Rob, thank you. Well, let's cross now to Victoria Grimes at Alder Hey Hospital, where a major incident was declared earlier today. And Vicky, what more can you tell us about the children who were injured?
That's right, Gamal. A major incident was declared here at Alder Hey Children's Hospital in West Derby, obviously a world-renowned centre for the treatment of children. That was de-escalated at around about lunchtime, but we do know that 2 pupils were brought here with what's been described as serious injuries. We haven't been given any further updates on their condition as yet, but we do know that 50 children were taken from the scene. They were transported away from the motorway and taken to an emergency services training centre in Wallasey, where they were medically assessed. From there, a number of children were taken to hospital. We know that 8 of those children who were taken to hospital went to the Countess of Chester and to Arrow Park. Most of the others have since been discharged back to the care of their families. Now, police have told us that they have specialist family liaison officers who are helping those that were involved in this horrific incident today. They say they're working together with both schools to make sure that pupils who were on that bus are receiving the appropriate trauma support for what they've been through. Now, you may have heard Rob mention just a couple of minutes ago that it was actually a convoy of buses that were travelling along the motorway today, heading towards school. And those pupils on the buses behind, there were pupils from both schools, did witness this incident, and they too are being offered support for what was undoubtedly an incredibly traumatic experience.
OK, Victoria, outside Alder Hey Children's Hospital. Thank you. Well, there is plenty more on that story on the ITV News at 6:30 with Charlene.
Coming up, a 14-year-old girl and a coach driver have died after a horror crash during the morning rush hour. More than 50 were injured after a school bus overturned on a motorway in Cheshire. We'll have the latest. Changes to the energy price cap. All the details on what this means for household bills this winter. And who would steal from a charity shop? The latest in our shoplifting series. So do join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Next tonight, to rising COVID rates, with hospitals seeing admissions steadily increase since July.
Yeah, this comes as the NHS steps up the rollout of the latest COVID booster vaccine, with millions of people due to be invited for jabs over the coming weeks.
Well, joining us now is Professor Callum Semple from the University of Liverpool. He advised the government during the pandemic. Professor Semple, thanks very much for joining us. Hospital admissions have been on the increase since July. How vigilant should we be about coronavirus with winter just around the corner? Professor Semple, can you hear us?
I'm sorry about that. I can now. There's no reason to panic. There's been a slow and steady rise in cases since July, with a very slight blip, possibly when the schools went back. But we're not seeing anything like the waves that we saw in the last 2 years. My interpretation is we're probably moving towards a more seasonal pattern of respiratory disease.
So this is seasonal then. It's got any links with, schools going back, Professor?
Fortunately, the UKHSA have provided a dashboard, so we can now look at the data from around the country quite easily. And when I look at the data, I don't see any sudden spike in cases associated with the schools going back. If anything, I find it relatively reassuring that we're not seeing the huge hockey stick rises that we saw in the last 2 years. It's a slow and steady rise. We're seeing a slight rise also in the other usual respiratory viruses, such as respiratory syncytial virus, that cause far more severe disease in babies.
Now, millions of people are being invited for another COVID jab. How important is it that they take them up?
It's terribly important, because we will likely see the usual seasonal flu epidemic, and flu plus COVID is really very, very bad for people. It greatly increases the risk of severe disease and going to intensive care. So you really don't want to catch flu and COVID at the same time. So very important to get the vaccination for both, particularly if you're in a high-risk group over the age of 65 or a younger person in a high-risk group.
And I guess for some people, COVID does feel like something that happened quite some time ago. Is it hard to get people to buy in now?
Yes, I think there is fatigue around the idea of getting vaccination. So it's going to be quite difficult to get some groups to pay attention to this. A lot of people are thinking that COVID is really nothing to worry about now. And to be fair, for the vast majority of us, that is the case. But if you're over 65 and you're in a high-risk group, you really do need to pay attention. Come in, get the vaccine. Getting the vaccine is going to be safer than getting the disease.
And aside from hospital admissions, we don't really know much about transmission. You probably do. We're not doing as much testing, are we?
That's right. The testing and surveillance has been scaled back because really you've got to provide resources for other activities. So we do need to accept that we're getting back to life as normal here with COVID. There's less testing going on, but there is hospital surveillance and targeted surveillance in the community.
Yeah, many people watching tonight will have been affected in tragic circumstances. I mean, we reported on it back when it was all really going on. I mean, what would your message to those people be this evening, Professor?
We are having to learn to live with COVID. We should be kind to each other and accept if some people want to wear masks in the community, don't ridicule them, give them due respect. They might have underlying health conditions or concerns, so give them the space and give them the respect that's due to them. For the rest of us, we do have to get on with life. Be sensible. If you're feeling sick, stay at home. But the reality is COVID is becoming a part of the seasonal life for us all. We have to get back to normal. We have to get back to work. So take the vaccine if you want. If you're in the high-risk group, get vaccinated. But otherwise, we do have to get on with life.
Professor Callum Semple, the epitome of calm in a crisis. Thanks ever so much.
My pleasure.
OK, lots to come on the programme tonight.
Can Lee Leopards make history with a cup double? All the build-up as the Super League playoffs get underway.
And it's a full moon tonight. In fact, it's the last super moon of the year, known as the harvest moon. But will the skies clear so we can get a good view? The weather forecast is coming up.
OK, on to sport now and some breaking news. Tyson Fury's super fight is on. Hello, Chris.
Yeah, very exciting. It would appear so. This news coming through in the last hour or so. It's taken a long time to get this deal agreed, but Morecambe fighter Tyson Fury will take on Alexander Usyk for the right to be crowned the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Ukrainian Usyk currently holds the WBA, WBO and IBF titles, while Fury is the current WBC champion. All those belts will be on the line when the pair go head-to-head in Saudi Arabia. No date has been announced yet, but December or January is looking favourite. Can't wait for that one. Now to football. And Manchester United's Brazilian winger Antony will return to training and be available for selection while police investigate allegations of violence towards women. Allegations that he headbutted his former girlfriend and assaulted 2 other women are strongly denied by Antony, who returned to England this week for a voluntary interview with Greater Manchester Police. He has not been arrested or charged. United say he will rejoin training and is available to play, but won't feature this weekend. His manager says the headlines around Antony won't be a distraction.
No, I don't think it's a distraction. We focus on the games and he will do as well. On Saturday he will be back in the training. So tomorrow.
You're comfortable with his fitness levels?
I have to see, but I think yeah.
And some bad news for United today is that defender Lisandro Martinez is out for up to 3 months with an injured foot. Meanwhile, Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp has welcomed the new investment at Anfield. Liverpool's owners, Fenway Sports Group, yesterday sold a minority stake in the club to sports investment firm Dynasty Equity. It could bring up to £160 million to Liverpool, but that will be used to pay off debts after the redevelopment of Anfield.
It's not that we need a budget now for 200 million that we can spend for the team, but the better place we are in, the more we can spend anyway. So we are in a year where we don't play Champions League, which we all know is a massive financial blow for a football club, but invested anyway, improved the team anyway in the summer. So, yeah, it's good news.
Now, on last night's programme, we previewed the start of the new Women's Super League season, but it's also FA Cup weekend in the women's game. On Sunday, Salford City Lionesses take on Bolton Wanderers women in the second qualifying round. And this afternoon, Salford's players surprised children from neighbouring St Paul's Primary School during their daily mile to give out free tickets for the game at Moor Lane.
It's massively important, and we love getting the local schools in to show our support to them and get them to support us. It'll encourage them to get hopefully involved in football and support their local community.
When you're a kid, male or female, boy or girl, everyone wants to win and play in the FA Cup. And for us it's like a dream really, and obviously to be entered into the FA Cup and to play on this pitch as well, it's just great.
Getting that winning feeling. FOW, sponsors of the Granada Sport Report.
Well, now to another huge night for Rugby League and for the Lee Leopards. The Challenge Cup holders kick off the Super League playoffs tonight with a win or bust match at Hull KR. St Helens then face Warrington tomorrow. Mike Hall has been chatting with the clubs who have grand designs on the grand final.
In 2 weeks' time, the Super League champions will be crowned at Old Trafford. 6 teams are left fighting for the crown. After topping the table and lifting the league leaders' shield, Wigan have a bye to the playoff semi-finals along with second-place Catalan Dragons, leaving the remaining 4 battling it out to join them. It's already been a remarkable season for the Lee Leopards. After beating Hull KR in the Challenge Cup final, they face them again tonight for a place in the last 4.
I think that will be there in the back of their minds, but then again, this is a whole different ball game. It's this is, you know, to win the big competition of Super League, and no one's got chances again. So it sort of has a very similar feel to it because it's knockouts from now on, and I think they will still have that in the back of their minds.
If revenge wasn't a big enough motivation, Hull KR's players will surely have been fired up by this, the sight of Lee's players arriving in Lamborghinis for this week's Dream Team announcement in Manchester.
And we're coming a little Datsun, little two-seater. No, mate, they've obviously they market the club in a different way. They're doing great on the field, they're doing great off the field, but certainly hope on Friday they don't do so great on the field.
The second playoff eliminator sees reigning champions St Helens take on Warrington tomorrow lunchtime. A final home game for Saints legend James Roby, who retires at the end of the season. His teammates don't want him to bow out just yet.
For me, he's the best player Super League seen. I think fantastic, and the knowledge he brings, just the calmness, that sort of voice. But even better than that, he's just unbelievable off the field. He's such a nice person. There's only one way we can really send him out, and we're going to try our best to do that.
As Saints bid for a 5th successive Super League crown, Warrington are still looking for their first. Could this be a fairy tale for interim boss Gary Chambers? 18 months ago, he was a teacher. He's now 2 wins away from a grand final.
How much are you enjoying it?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's good. You can tell I'm quite happy at the moment. It's all new. It's a challenge and keeps you on your toes. Yeah, we've got a right test this week, haven't we? You know, it doesn't get any tougher. I thought we had a real tussle with them, you know, a couple of weeks ago. If they can get to that level and they can get to that intensity, then who knows?
It's the weekend when Super League becomes a knockout competition. 2 teams will fall. For those left standing, the dream of Old Trafford is very much alive. Mike Hall, ITV News.
Yeah, I love this time of year. Just a couple of weeks until the grand final, just across the water there at Old Trafford. Can't wait.
It'll be fab. Thanks very much, Chris.
And now, the Manchester all-female punk group who've been personally invited to support a legendary US band, the Foo Fighters.
Loose Articles formed in 2019 and combine gigging, with full-time jobs, but have challenged the music industry to do more to support female artists in particular.
Yeah, they're currently recording their first album, which they warn will be an even bigger sound, and they're already pretty loud. They've been chatting to Elaine Wilcox at Manchester's Deaf Institute.
Their name came after a trip to a theme park. They described their music as post-punk and shouty.
And I just remember being stood in the queue and I looked at the sign and it said, secure all loose articles, and I was like, that's it.
Girls can play, it's just a myth, like a blasted ball in the back of the net, now stop it with this mindset. Gals and guys can do the same, now let's get back to the game.
Their Kick Like a Girl tour is very on message, highlighting misogyny in sport and the music industry.
People in bands are the last people to get paid at all.
The musicians.
Yeah, the musicians who actually create the music, and without us there wouldn't be a music industry. Women in the music industry as well, it needs to change from the top of actually getting booked in these bigger slots, big festival slots.
Sinead Loves Bitcoin is a song about scamming. The band want to make people laugh while juggling gigging with full-time jobs.
Just how difficult is it to make money in this industry?
It feels impossible.
Yeah, it feels impossible. It's probably the end goal, isn't it? Like, we all work full-time and we all want to do music full-time. We all have to do our 9-to-5 jobs, Monday to Fridays, and then do the band whenever we can. We're just juggling it all at the moment, so one day, hopefully soon, we can quit our jobs.
You're tackling some of the big issues in your music with the lyrics. They're up and at you, from football to climate change. What's the message there?
It sort of gets the attention a little bit more when people are laughing and being like, oh, look at them being silly, and then they like listen a bit more and like, oh, now they're on about climate change. It's a good way to get people on board rather than preaching.
They've a dream gig coming up with the Foo Fighters. The legendary band sent a personal invite.
So it's like the biggest rock band in the world.
Like, I grew up listening to Nirvana, they're my favourite band, so just to meet Dave Grohl's going to be great.
Yeah, I've got handpicked ourselves. Bye, Dave.
Funky Punk is how they describe their up-and-coming album, with Louise on keyboards giving them a bigger sound. Her new baby will go on tour too, as Loose Articles pick up speed.
Scream if you want to go faster, running around the mosh pit.
Rocking it with the Foo Fighters, not a bad gig.
My days in the mosh pit are well and truly over.
You say that, Anne. Say that.
They are.
Here's Joe with the weather.
Have you burnt tea again?
I'm scraping the cooled oil into the bin, not the sink.
Can we eat outside? It's nice.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada Weather.
Hello again. Welcome to the weekend. It is looking a bit mixed weather-wise. After a bright start to the day tomorrow, cloud will build with breezy wet weather moving in by the end of the afternoon. And that's how we start Sunday. It may improve a little later, and temperatures are certainly going to rise as we go through the next couple of days. Now, high pressure has given us fine conditions for many today with some sunshine, but low pressure is nudging it out the way once again during tomorrow afternoon, and by tomorrow evening, breezy, damp weather moving in for Sunday. And certainly low pressure is still dominant as we enter the new week. Back to this evening's details, however, and here in the northwest, just one or two showers scooting through on the breeze as we go through the course of the night. Lots of dry weather too, though, and long clear spells with a gentle breeze will allow a few mist patches develop, perhaps one or two fog patches in the Pennines before dawn. And it does mean in sheltered spots tonight it could dip to around 5 or 6 degrees. So a chilly start to the day tomorrow, when the sun will be rising at 7:10, setting at 6:51 tomorrow evening. Not a bad start for many of us. Mistiness will lift, revealing some sunshine, the chance of one or two isolated showers through the morning, but lots of dry weather. cloud beginning to build though as we go through the day. After lunchtime, most places will see that cloud cover. Rain moving into the Isle of Man by lunch and sweeping across much of the northwest during tomorrow afternoon, accompanied by gusty winds. 16, maybe 17 Celsius at best tomorrow. A breezy and damp evening tomorrow evening, followed by a cloudy start to Sunday, improving a little later, and temperatures are doing well. Into the new week, starting fairly unsettled, has to be said.
It's a little bit burnt.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada Weather.
I want to know more about your mosh pit days.
15,
Yeah.
the Smiths
Ooh.
at Northampton Derngate. I was absolutely in love.
We need to repeat those days again, Anne.
Never.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.